They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. Picture this. It's a freezing night in January 2009. The global economy has just imploded. Lehman Brothers is nothing but a memory. The stock market is spiraling downward. And well, you're a 31-year-old guy who installs swimming pools, sitting alone in your truck on the side of a dark, empty road. You've just called your bank's automated line for the 10th night straight, desperately hoping for different news. But that cold, robotic voice delivers the same crushing message. Your account is overdrawn. 2 weeks, that's how long it's been. Your business, the one you've dedicated 8 years of your life to, is bleeding out. Your employees are sitting at home with no work to do. Every single business consultant you've paid good money for has told you exactly the same thing. File for bankruptcy. There's nothing left to do. The full weight of it crashes down on you all at once. You're a husband. You're a father of 4 kids. You've always prided yourself on solving problems, but right now, you have absolutely nothing. And so, sitting there in that cold truck in the darkness, with the crushing weight of failure pressing down on your shoulders, you break down and cry. That desperate, soul-crushing moment was Marcus Sheridan's reality. He wasn't some marketing genius. He wasn't a business mastermind. He was just a guy who installed swimming pools, staring down the barrel of losing everything he'd built. But from that absolute bottom, he stumbled onto a business philosophy so beautifully simple, so remarkably powerful, and so deeply human, that it didn't just rescue his little pool company, it's gone on to transform thousands of businesses worldwide. What you're about to discover isn't merely a marketing tactic. This is a story about trust. It's about a fundamental shift in how we, as human beings, make decisions in the modern world. And by the time we're finished, I promise you'll understand how to become the most trusted voice in your entire industry, whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or a side hustle out of your spare bedroom. The secret is a deceptively simple 4-word phrase that transformed a desperate pool guy into an international thought leader. They ask, you answer. So how did everything fall apart like this? How did we arrive at a moment where all the old business rules just stopped working? Marcus Sheridan's story starts in a period that'll sound familiar to many of us, the artificial boom of the early 2000s. Between 2001 and 2008, business was great, but honestly, it was also ridiculously easy. At river pools and spas, selling a swimming pool was pretty straightforward. The housing market was exploding upward, and getting a loan required little more than a pulse. If you could pitch it, someone would finance it. But the whole beautiful system was built on sand. And in September 2008, that foundation crumbled. The economic collapse wasn't just headlines in newspapers. It was a devastating wave that smashed into everyday businesses with brutal force. For river pools, the impact was instant. Within 48 hours of the market crash, 5 customers who'd already put down deposits picked up the phone to cancel. Just like that, $250,000 in sales evaporated into thin air. This was just the beginning of the nightmare. Savings accounts drained, credit lines maxed out. By January, the company account was in the red, and Marcus and his business partners were staring bankruptcy directly in the face. But it was in this suffocating darkness that a tiny spark of an idea started to form. Marcus looked at his own behavior as a consumer. When he had a question about anything, a product he wanted, a problem he needed to solve, some random thing he was curious about, where did he turn? The internet. Google. He realized he was never really an uninformed buyer anymore, about anything. The balance of power had shifted. Information was no longer locked away in the minds of salespeople. It was available to anyone, instantly, at any time. He noticed that the old marketing methods, television commercials, radio ads, newspaper spreads, were slowly dying. His company had poured a fortune into them, with diminishing returns year after year. The world had fundamentally changed. The buyer had fundamentally changed. And he understood, with the clarity that only desperation can bring, that if his business was going to survive, it had to fundamentally change too. So he started studying. Late into the night, after his wife and kids had gone to bed, he consumed everything he could find about this emerging world of digital marketing. He encountered buzzwords like inbound marketing and content marketing. The formal definitions were packed with jargon that sailed right over his head. But being a pool installer without an MBA turned out to be his secret advantage. He didn't see complexity. He saw a straightforward, human truth. He stripped away all the fancy terminology and distilled it down to one essential idea. Marcus, he told himself, just answer people's questions. That was it. That was the entire strategy. Stop selling. Stop self-promoting. Start teaching. Become the most genuinely helpful, brutally honest source of information about swimming pools on the entire internet. His new company philosophy became his North Star, a principle that would change absolutely everything. They ask, you answer. This elegant phrase is the beating heart of the entire book. It's a business philosophy built on an obsession with understanding your customer's mind. What are they thinking about? What are they searching for online? But even more critically, what are they worried about? What keeps them up at night? Most businesses think they understand their customers, but they really don't. They talk endlessly about themselves, their products, their impressive features. They practice what Marcus calls ostrich marketing. When a customer has a difficult or uncomfortable question about pricing, about problems with the product, about how they compare to competitors, what does the typical business do? Just like an ostrich, it sticks its head in the sand and pretends the question doesn't exist. But here's the thing, the question never disappears. In today's connected world, that customer just pulls out their smartphone and finds the answer somewhere else. And whoever gives them that honest answer first is the one who earns their trust. This brings us to one of the most jaw-dropping statistics in the entire book. Research shows that today, on average, 70% of the buying decision happens before a potential customer ever talks to your company. Let that sink in for a moment. 70%. A decade ago, that number was probably around 20 or 30%. This means the battle for your customer's business is being won or lost on your website, in your blog articles, and in your videos, long before any salesperson ever gets the chance to shake their hand. Your marketing department isn't just creating brochures anymore. It's become your most critical sales team. So, armed with this revelation, Marcus did something incredibly straightforward. He sat down at his kitchen table one evening and wrote down every single question he'd ever been asked by a customer throughout 9 years in the pool business. After just 30 minutes, he had a list of over 100 questions. That list became his blueprint. Each question itself became the exact title of a blog post or video. If a customer asked, "How much does a fiberglass pool cost?" that became the title. If they asked, "What are the problems with fiberglass pools?" that became the title too. This is where the real magic started happening. As he began analyzing what people were actually reading, he made a remarkable discovery. He found that across every single industry imaginable, buyers are obsessed with the same 5 topics. He called them the Big Five. These are the subjects that, if you have the courage to address them with complete honesty, will generate more website traffic, qualified leads, and actual sales than anything else you could possibly create. The first one, and the most absolutely terrifying for most businesses, is pricing and costs. Have you ever been on a company's website, desperately trying to figure out how much something costs, and you literally can't find the information anywhere? What emotion rushes through you in that moment? Frustration. Suspicion. You feel like they're deliberately hiding something from you. And in that instant, trust evaporates completely. Businesses rely on 3 main excuses for avoiding discussions about money. First, they claim, every solution is completely different. Our prices vary wildly. Sure, of course they do. The customer already knows that. They're not expecting a precise dollar amount down to the penny, but they desperately want to get a realistic sense of what they're looking at. You can explain the various factors that push the price up or down, and that's exactly the kind of information they're searching for. The second excuse is our competitors will discover what we charge. This one is genuinely laughable. Your competitors almost certainly already have a pretty solid idea of your pricing structure. You're essentially letting the people trying to steal your business dictate whether or not you build trust with the people who actually want to pay you. The third excuse is perhaps the most revealing. We'll scare potential customers away. Stop and think about what that really means. You're essentially admitting, if I'm completely honest with people up front, they won't want to work with me. But the reality is, what actually scares customers away isn't your pricing, it's the complete absence of information. Marcus decided to confront this head-on. He wrote an article titled, "How Much Does a Fiberglass Pool Cost?" He didn't provide a single fixed price point. Instead, he explained that buying a pool is remarkably similar to buying a car. It completely depends on which options you choose. He methodically broke down every factor, from basic installation packages to complete turnkey installations, including patios and full landscaping. He provided broad price ranges, and after more than 1,000 words of detailed explanation, the final answer was still, it depends. When he published that article back in 2009, guess how many other pool companies in the entire world were openly discussing costs on their websites? Absolutely zero. They were all playing ostrich. The result was nothing short of explosive. Within just 48 hours, his article claimed the #1 spot on Google for anyone searching about fiberglass pool costs. And this wasn't just meaningless web traffic. Traffic doesn't pay your mortgage. Sales do. Using his marketing tracking software, he could follow the entire customer journey from start to finish. He discovered that this one single article, born from a simple, honest answer to a common question, directly generated over $3 million in sales. One article. It saved his failing business. It saved his family home. It saved the livelihoods of all his employees. All because he found the courage to answer the question everyone was desperately asking, but no one in his industry had the guts to address. The second subject in the Big Five is problems. When we're about to make a significant purchase, we worry far more about what might go catastrophically wrong than what will go right. We actively search for negative reviews, not positive reviews. Marcus's main competitors, the concrete pool installers, would constantly tell potential customers about all the problems with fiberglass pools. They crack easily. They're too small for real swimming. They look cheap and tacky. So instead of running from this criticism, Marcus ran straight toward it. His business partner sat down and wrote an article titled, "Top 5 Fiberglass Pool Problems and Solutions." Again, everyone in the industry thought they'd completely lost their minds. Why on earth would you publicly advertise your own product's weaknesses? Because your customers are absolutely going to discover those weaknesses anyway. You can either let them find out about the elephant in the room from your competitor and lose their trust forever, or you can point directly at the elephant yourself and say, here it is. Let's have an honest conversation about it. The article was unflinchingly honest. It essentially said, look, a fiberglass pool genuinely might not be the right choice for you. If you want a truly custom, unique shape or a pool deeper than 8 feet, then you should probably consider getting a concrete pool instead. This level of transparency was completely disarming. People trusted them more precisely because they were willing to openly admit they weren't the perfect solution for absolutely everyone. That single article has generated over $500,000 in sales. The third subject is versus and comparisons. Buyers are absolutely obsessed with comparing options. They want to line up option A directly against option B and see exactly how they stack up. The biggest question Marcus constantly heard was, why should I choose a fiberglass pool versus a concrete one? For years, he completely ignored this question on his website, somehow thinking that if he never mentioned concrete pools, maybe customers wouldn't realize they existed. A completely absurd idea, he later admitted. As he puts it so perfectly, consumer ignorance is no longer a viable sales and marketing strategy. So his team wrote the definitive comparison article, Fiberglass Pools versus Vinyl Liner Pools versus Concrete Pools, an honest comparison. They were the very first company in their entire industry to create something like this. The absolute key was to be relentlessly unbiased and fair. The introduction of that article is a masterclass in what Marcus calls disarmament. It essentially opened with, here at River Pools we exclusively sell fiberglass pools. But to be completely honest with you, they might not be the best choice for your specific situation. This article will give you the honest pros and cons of all three types so you can make the decision that's genuinely best for you. By openly admitting their own potential limitations and acknowledging the genuine strengths of their competitors, they instantly dissolved the reader's natural skepticism. The reader stopped seeing them as just another pushy salesperson and started seeing them as a trusted teacher, and teachers always occupy a special place of trust in our minds. That article has also generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales. The final two subjects in the Big Five are reviews and best-in-class lists. We're absolutely obsessed with reviews as a culture. We desperately want to know who the best option is. Marcus noticed there was no Motor Trend Car of the Year style award for the swimming pool industry, so he just created it himself. He wrote an article called The Best Fiberglass Pool Design Awards, where he thoroughly reviewed the models from all the major manufacturers, including his direct competitors, who he was fighting against for every sale. He gave awards and recognition to the very companies he competed with every single day. Then he pushed it even further. After a sales appointment where a customer directly asked him who his best local competitors were, he went straight home and wrote an article titled, "Who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia?" He listed the 5 companies he genuinely respected most in his area. And no, he deliberately did not include his own company anywhere on that list. Because the instant you put yourself on your own best-of list, you completely destroy all credibility. The customer is already on your website. They can make up their own mind about whether you're worth considering. The result? When people searched online for reviews of his competitors, they found Marcus's honest, balanced article instead. One woman was literally sitting at her kitchen table about to sign a contract with a competitor, decided to do just one final Google search on them, found Marcus's article with his fair and honest review, and was so genuinely impressed by his transparency that she called him instead, and ended up buying a $50,000 pool. That one single article generated $150,000 in sales just in its first year. This entire philosophy is perfectly captured in the story of CarMax. The used car industry was, and often still is, absolutely plagued by deep customer distrust. CarMax carefully studied the 4 biggest fears customers had: buying a lemon that breaks down immediately, dealing with high-pressure salespeople, getting completely ripped off on price, and suffering terrible buyer's remorse. Then they systematically built their entire business model specifically around eliminating those exact fears. No haggle pricing killed the fear of high-pressure tactics. A rigorous multi-point inspection process, plus a detailed Carfax report, killed the fear of buying a terrible car. And a generous 5-day money-back guarantee killed the fear of buyer's remorse. They didn't just answer customer questions. They transformed their entire business to make those questions irrelevant. That's the CarMax effect in action. They became absolutely obsessed with understanding and eliminating their customers' deepest fears, and in doing so became the largest used vehicle retailer in the entire United States. This leads to a crucial insight. What actually prevents most companies from adopting this philosophy? It's not the customer. It's not even the bad fit customers, the people who genuinely can't afford your product anyway. Marcus calls it the triangle of influence. The number one group that secretly dictates what a company will or won't say publicly is the competition. We're so paralyzed by fear of what our competitors might think or say that we deliberately choose to ignore what our customers are desperately begging to know. We let the people actively trying to destroy our business control our ability to build trust with the people who want to give us their money. It's genuinely tragic. The most successful companies completely flip this triangle upside down. They listen exclusively to the customer. But they ask you answer isn't just a clever marketing philosophy. It's also a revolutionary sales tool. Marcus made yet another stunning discovery. He carefully analyzed everyone who'd ever filled out a request-to-quote form on his website. He separated them into 2 clear groups, people who eventually bought from him and people who didn't. He was searching for the differentiating factor. What was the magic indicator that predicted whether someone would actually become a customer? He found it. It was the number 30, He discovered that if someone read 30 or more pages of content on his website before their very first sales appointment, they bought from him a staggering 80% of the time. If they'd read fewer than 30 pages, the closing rate dropped all the way down to only 25%. This discovery was an absolute game changer. It meant that every single article, every video, was functioning like another date with the potential customer, slowly building trust piece by piece, brick by brick. By the time they crossed that 30-page threshold, they weren't just a lead anymore. They were a true believer. They had essentially already sold themselves. So he thought, if that's the magic number, how can I be much more intentional and strategic about getting people to consume our content? This insight led directly to the creation of assignment selling. From that point forward, when a prospect called asking for a price quote, the entire conversation shifted. Instead of simply booking the appointment and showing up, Marcus would say something like, "I'd absolutely love to come out and meet with you, but this is a really significant investment for your family, and I want to make absolutely sure you're fully educated before we meet. I'm going to email you a detailed video that walks through our entire installation process, step by step, plus a comprehensive buyer's guide that answers most of the common questions. Would you be willing to review those materials before our appointment on Friday?" 90% of people immediately said, "Sure, no problem." And if they didn't, Marcus learned that the people who weren't willing to invest any time educating themselves were almost always just shopping purely on price, and they were never a good fit for his company anyway. The homework became the ultimate filter for separating serious buyers from tire kickers. This completely transformed his entire sales process. Back in 2007, to sell 75 pools, Marcus had to physically drive out to 250 different sales appointments, giving him roughly a 30% closing rate. By 2013, using assignment selling, his team sold 95 pools by going on only 120 appointments, pushing the closing rate up to nearly 80%. And guess what the average number of pages those actual buyers had read was? It wasn't 30, it was 105. The most incredible example of this principle was a surgeon and his wife, a couple Marcus refers to as the Gs. One evening, Marcus saw in his tracking software that Mr. G had personally viewed 374 different pages of the website. A few moments later, he noticed that Mrs. G had viewed another 140 pages. Together, this couple had consumed over 500 pages of content about fiberglass swimming pools. When Marcus arrived for what was technically a sales appointment, Mr. G was standing in his living room holding a detailed spreadsheet listing the exact pool model he wanted and every single accessory he'd selected. All he genuinely needed from Marcus was the final price confirmation. Marcus walked out of that house 45 minutes later with a signed contract and a $5,000 deposit check. He realized with absolute clarity that he hadn't done any actual selling whatsoever. His content had done all the heavy lifting for him. Content never gets tired. It never sleeps. It works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, simultaneously building trust with thousands of potential customers at once, in a way that no single human salesperson ever possibly could. So how do you actually make this a living reality in your own organization? It requires a genuine cultural shift. It starts with a focused workshop where you gather everyone, people from sales, leadership, operations, even the engineers, into one room to deeply understand the what, the how, and most importantly, the why behind this entire philosophy. And critically, you absolutely need a dedicated content manager. This can't be a part-time side project for the overwhelmed marketing intern. It's a full-time, business-critical role for someone who can write clearly, conduct great interviews, edit ruthlessly, and orchestrate this entire educational engine. Often, a trained journalist turns out to be the absolutely perfect fit. Their job isn't simply to write. It's to systematically extract the incredible knowledge locked inside the heads of your subject matter experts and transform it into content that your customers will genuinely love. This process of using your own internal team is called insourcing, and it's the absolute key to creating authentic, powerful, trustworthy content. The results of this philosophy speak volumes for themselves. River pools and spas climbed all the way back from the edge of bankruptcy to become the single most visited swimming pool website in the entire world. They now manufacture their own pool products and are rapidly growing into one of the largest manufacturers globally. Yale Appliance, a small local store in Boston, transformed into the biggest online thought leader in the entire kitchen appliance industry, generating over $10 million in sales annually from their educational content alone, with literally $0 spent on traditional advertising. Block Imaging, a business-to-business company in the medical equipment space, generated over $20 million in sales they can directly trace back to this exact philosophy. The success stories just keep coming, but the fundamental lesson remains exactly the same. Back in 2013, the New York Times wrote a major feature story about Marcus and his unlikely little pool company. The headline read, "A Revolutionary Marketing Strategy, Answer Customer Questions." Think about the beautiful irony packed into that headline. Is it genuinely revolutionary to simply answer your customers' questions? In principle, absolutely not. It's literally the oldest rule in the entire book of business. But in actual practice, in a noisy modern world where everyone is constantly shouting but almost nobody is truly listening, it turns out to be the most revolutionary act of all. When you strip away everything else, what is this book really fundamentally about? It's about returning to the most basic element of all human connection: trust. For decades, business and marketing became unnecessarily complicated. We developed elaborate theories, we crafted clever advertisements, and we constructed walls between ourselves and the people we were trying to serve. We somehow convinced ourselves that the key to successful selling was to be slick, to be persuasive, to carefully control every aspect of the conversation. Marcus Sheridan, through his own painful transformative journey, gently reminds us that we had it completely backward all along. The greatest sales tool ever invented, the single most effective marketing strategy ever devised, is not persuasion at all, it's education. It's the radical act of being relentlessly, almost obsessively helpful. The most powerful lesson here is the fundamental shift in mindset, from seller to teacher. A seller tries desperately to convince you. A teacher genuinely seeks to empower you. A seller obsesses over the transaction. A teacher focuses on your transformation. When you truly start seeing yourself as a teacher first, your entire approach to business fundamentally changes. You're no longer terrified of tough questions about pricing or product problems, because a good teacher isn't afraid of any question. They actively welcome it as a golden opportunity to build genuine understanding and clarity. This isn't just some feel-good philosophical idea. It's profoundly, measurably practical. In a modern world absolutely drowning in information overload, the person who provides genuine clarity becomes king. In an economy plagued by deep skepticism and distrust, the person who consistently provides radical honesty becomes a shining beacon. By simply answering the questions that your customers are already frantically asking anyway, you're not just creating another piece of content, you're building a genuine asset. A trust asset that, as Marcus definitively proved, pays meaningful dividends for years and years to come. So how can you start putting this into actual practice starting right now? I want you to try 3 beautifully simple things. First, tonight before bed, grab a blank piece of paper and do exactly what Marcus did at his kitchen table. Brainstorm every single question you've ever been asked by a customer or client. Don't filter yourself. Write down the easy softball questions, the challenging ones, and especially the ones that make you genuinely uncomfortable. This list is your personal treasure map. Second, pick out the single most difficult, uncomfortable question on that entire list. The one about your pricing being too high, or the one about a well-known weakness in your product, or the one about your biggest, scariest competitor. And tomorrow, make a commitment to actually answer it. Write a brutally honest blog article, or record a simple, straightforward video. Address the elephant standing in the middle of the room. I genuinely promise you, The act of doing this will feel incredibly liberating, and your customers will absolutely reward you for your courage. Third, think carefully about who the smartest, most knowledgeable person in your entire organization is. The person who has all the valuable answers locked away in their head. Schedule just 15 minutes to sit down with them with one single goal. Ask them one question from your list, and then just listen carefully. Record the entire conversation if you can. That conversation is absolutely pure gold. It's the perfect raw material for your next truly great piece of content. That's it. You don't need a massive marketing budget or a fancy business degree. You just need a genuine obsession with understanding your customers' questions and the courage to answer them with complete honesty. That was a summary of They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. We've explored the core of its powerful message today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of an incredible feast. You can clearly see what's beautifully arranged on the table, but you can't actually taste the food. The real flavor, the true nourishment that changes you, comes from reading the book yourself. It's in the detailed case studies, the subtle shifts in perspective, and the nuanced insights that a summary simply can't fully capture. This overview is your map, designed to help you decide if this is a journey genuinely worth taking. If the idea of building your entire business on a rock-solid foundation of pure trust deeply resonates with you, then I strongly encourage you to grab your own copy. Reading it isn't just about learning a clever new strategy. It's about remembering an ancient truth that can completely change the way you do business forever. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if this exploration brought you any genuine value today, please take just a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us understand we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another, potentially world-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's continue this journey of growth together.